The forest was quiet, the rustling leaves and chirping birds the only sounds as the Carter family hiked along the winding trail. It had been a perfect weekend for camping, crisp air, clear skies, and the smell of pine hanging heavy in the breeze. Lila and Mike Carter were grateful for this time away from the city with their two children, Emily, their 12-year-old daughter, and 6-year-old Tommy, who bounded ahead of them with boundless energy. "Stay close, Tommy," Lila called, her voice soft but firm. The boy laughed, his blonde hair catching the sunlight as he skipped over rocks, his small legs propelling him faster than the rest of the family could keep up. The trail eventually wound down toward the river, where the current moved swiftly, cutting through the dense forest like a black ribbon. The water was cold and dark, flowing fast from the recent rains, a sharp contrast to the bright and peaceful day. "Be careful near the edge, Tommy," Mike warned as they neared the riverbank. But the warning came too late. Tommy, not paying attention, tripped on a root sticking out of the ground. His small body lurched forward, arms flailing as he tumbled into the river. His scream cut through the air, a sharp cry of fear that was quickly swallowed by the rushing water. "Tommy!" Lila screamed, her heart seizing in her chest. Mike didn't hesitate. He dropped his pack and jumped into the river, the icy water splashing up as he plunged in. For a moment, everything was chaos. Lila grabbed Emily, holding her close as they watched the water churn violently. Mike's head surfaced once, then twice, his arms thrashing as he tried to find his son in the swirling blackness. Then, miraculously, Tommy's small head appeared. He was gasping for air, somehow managing to keep himself afloat. But there was no sign of Mike. Lila's heart raced. "Mike!" she shouted, scanning the river for any trace of her husband. The water was relentless, its current too fast. But her attention snapped back to Tommy, who was drifting toward the shore. Without thinking, Lila released Emily and rushed to the water's edge, reaching out for her son. "Tommy, grab my hand," she called, her voice shaking with fear and relief. Tommy struggled toward her, his small hands flapping in the water. But something was wrong. His movements were stiff, unnatural. And his face, something about his face was different. His eyes, usually bright blue, were dark, almost black. His skin, instead of its normal pale tone, had a sickly, grayish tinge to it. "Tommy?" Lila whispered, confused, but still reaching for him. He crawled out of the water and onto the bank, his body drenched, but he didn't seem to shiver from the cold. His clothes clung to him, and his small lips twisted into a strange smile. Lila's stomach twisted with unease. "Tommy, where's your dad? Where's Mike?" she asked, her voice trembling. The boy didn't answer. Instead, he stared at her, his eyes too dark, too hollow. He looked like Tommy, but something about him was wrong. The way he moved, the way he stared, it was as if he was studying her, not recognizing her. She knelt, her hands shaking as she reached out to touch him. "Tommy, come here." But the moment her fingers grazed his wet skin, she screamed. Her hands burned as though she had touched something searing hot. She yanked her hands back, cradling them against her chest, the pain spreading up her arms. Blisters formed on her palms where she had touched him, red and swollen, as if his skin had scorched hers. Tommy, if it was still Tommy, tilted his head, his expression blank. "Mom." Emily's voice trembled behind her. "What's wrong with Tommy?" Lila stumbled back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and fear clawed at her insides. "Tommy, what happened to you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rushing water. The boy just stared, his eyes like black pools, devoid of any warmth or familiarity. The thing standing before her was no longer her son. And then he spoke. His voice was soft, too soft, as if it was coming from somewhere far away. "The river took Dad." Lila's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Where's your father?" But Tommy didn't answer. He turned and looked at the river, his expression blank. "The river took him," he repeated, "and it gave me back." Lila's body went cold with terror as she realized the truth. Whatever had come out of the river was not her son. The Tommy that stood before her now was something else, something that had crawled out of the depths in his place. A faint ripple passed across the surface of the river, and Lila thought she could see something, or someone, moving just beneath the water's surface. But Mike didn't surface. And neither did Tommy. Not the real Tommy.